Hi, Filmatics. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to part 3. You're going to love this part with Michael Givens, and you probably know him as an amazing cinematographer, writer, and director. He's known for the Celestine Prophecy, which is going to be a spectacular movie if you watch it and binge watch that. Angel Camouflage, Surviving the Wild with Jamie Kennedy and Jon Voight, Orphan Horse, another Jon Voight, Nuns, Deadly Confessions, Thou Shall Not Kill, Opposite Day, a family-friendly, cute kids movie, so much fun, with Pauly Shore. Let's welcome back to the show, Michael Givens.
Such a pleasure.
So we were talking in part 2 of your jump from an amazing world sophisticated, one of the top cinematographers in the world, and Ridley Scott calls you, has a meeting, and says, Michael Givens, you got to be a director. And then you start directing. Can you tell us about some of your favorite films that you've worked on?
Yeah, sure. I've actually worked on a lot of films, a lot. I mean, as far as all the ones that I worked on in a few different categories, I've worked on about 70 or 75 movies and shot about 1,000 TV commercials, mostly around the world. And it all sort of leads you to, whatever it is that your talent, stands up for, I've always had, how do I say this? The sort of raison d'etre of my storytelling is about a level. This is why I'm always attracted to people like Ridley Scott, is because I like a level of sophistication with what I shoot. Now, that certainly does not mean that everything that I shot was sophisticated. If you go look at, all the movies that I shot or directed, when I direct, I'm also the cinematographer and sometimes the writer. But
that's amazing. Are there a lot that directors that are also their own cinematographer? Is that a unique thing, or it's pretty?
There's a few. There's a few. There's not many. Right. But there's a few. And my sort of smart aleck answer to that is it's one less person to argue with.
Okay.
But
yeah.
It's really two people less to argue with because I'll also operate the camera. But it really is because I know what I'm looking for, and I know what look that I want to put to it. And I'm sure that if I was doing a $100 million movie, a studio probably wouldn't let me also DP it. But I haven't had that opportunity yet.
And you should. I mean, Fox Studio, Warner Brothers, hello, Michael Givens. You want him on that big blockbuster movie. I can imagine right now how incredible a Marvel action film would be with you on it. It would be so incredible, and the fans would be cheering. We should get like a petition going. Michael Givens, hire him on a blockbuster. I bet you get one after this interview. I bet you I'll be like seeing your big blockbuster studio film. That'd be incredibly, oh my God, they would be so happy with your work.
Don't you have a management company?
Yes.
Maybe we should talk. Yeah, there's something in it for everybody. I really got my start with some really incredibly talented visual storytellers. And that's sort of the crux of what I do. And that's also the sort of genesis of how I write. I write in a very visual way because that's the way I shoot. I remember having a meeting with there were two guys that composed the music for Angel Camouflage, and that was John Morgan and Billy Stromberg. And Billy said to me afterwards, he says, "This is the first movie that I've ever worked on where the movie actually was just like the script." I said, "Well, yeah, that's because I wrote it, and then I shot it, and then I sat with the editor. But just because I did it, it certainly doesn't mean that it's right. But there is a great joy in the process of doing those things and knowing what you're looking for. But the real joy comes from watching an actor literally breathe life into words that you came up with, at like 3 o'clock in the morning one night while you were, panicking to get through some sort of page count. And I give you an example. I mean, there was a scene in Angel Camouflaged where, well, actually, when I was doing casting is the best place to start. Where I was casting for that. There was a number of well-known actors that wanted a particular role in that movie. And I sent it around to people and they really wanted it, but I had my heart set on using this woman named Delana Robichaud or Smith. She's had a couple of different last names, but she's absolutely brilliant, wonderful rock star from South Africa. Look her up. You don't need to look up anything more than Delana. I'm sure that'll show up. And she's brilliant. And I was actually offered that movie by some guys that had a production company in Florida. They wanted to do a movie about a blind football player that did not get off the ground. And they had a comedy, which was called Coconuts. And they wanted me to shoot that. And I didn't want to do it because it was all kind of low comedy. And I'm just not interested in that. And so I didn't want to do it. And they then said, well, look, we'd like to shoot it down in the Florida Keys. Will you come down and look at locations with us and let us talk you into this? And I said, you know what? I'll take a trip to the Keys. Why not? Florida, so I went down there. I met with those guys and we walked around and I finally just said to them, I said, guys, this is just the wrong story. This is not what you should tell. This sort of goofy comedy. This really should be a movie about, rock and roll and tattoos and struggling and making a life and redemption and they just kind of looked at me with a blank stare and I said, actually one of the producers was this really great guy who actually I did movies with back in the 80s, a guy named Ken Dalton. And we were working for Roger Corman when we were working together at first. And he says to me, he says, hey, have you ever heard of that show Rock? And he couldn't even remember the rest of the name. It was Rockstar Supernova. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but I happened to have seen that show and I was fascinated with Delana. And I said, oh my God, you're talking about Delana. Okay. If you'll let me do a page 1 rewrite on this script, I'll do your movie. And so I was leaving right after that to go shoot a commercial in Prague. And I went to Prague, actually went to, where was it? It was Milan, where the production company was, went to a production meeting there. We went to Prague, did some location scouting, and we had like 2 weeks before we were shooting. And they said, well, we can send you home, or the Cannes Festival's going on, we can send you there. Or you can just hang out in Milan. And I said, send me to the Cannes Festival.
Yeah, oui, bonjour.
Yeah, you know what? I've been to that 11 times. It's the greatest thing in the world.
I want to go. Someone send me there to do the podcast.
You're going to go. You're going to go. Okay?
I'm there.
Let's talk later. You're going to go. And so I went to the Cannes Festival for a week, and I made notes in that week. And then I went back to Milan, locked myself in a hotel room, and wrote the first draft, literally on legal pads, of the script for Angel Camouflaged, while I was locked away in that thing. Then I went and shot the commercial, and then I went from there. I went down to Miami to meet with these guys, and I pitched them the idea. And they were like, gosh, okay, what's that going to cost? I said, I don't know, but let's, what have we got? And we had a little bit of money raised, which was like $250,000. And I said, well, let's take that money and go shoot a teaser. Let's go shoot, like some scenes from the movie so it's not wasted, so that we actually put it in a movie. And we went, I got them to agree to it. We took that money, we went out to the desert in California, and we shot what turns out to be basically the opening scene, not the very opening scenes, but right after the opening scenes of the movie. And we shot 10 minutes of the movie. And we shot, 35, and I went and did, an edit and a color correction. And then we put it on Blu-ray and started showing it to investors. Well, I had this one woman that came along that saw it and she loved it and wanted to get involved with it. And she just wrote me a check. It was brilliant. And
you love that. I want to write you a check.
yeah,
It has
now
James Brolin in it. Yeah.
All of that pre-pro took about a year. Okay. And in that time, after I met with Delana and talked with her, I started giving her acting lessons. And people argued with me. It's like, no, you should hire an actor to be a musician. And I said, not in this case. In many cases, yes, but in this case, no. It needs to be, and I was thinking about marketing as well. I wanted to use Delana because Delana would then also help market the movie with her music. We also, like, I wrote some scenes for Joan Jett, and Joan unfortunately had to back out at the last minute because of the movie that she had done about her band. What was it called? Cherry. Gosh, I can't remember. But she's a dream. What a great lady. But we had the Marshall Tucker Band. We had Curtis Blow. And then, because I couldn't get Joan, we switched over. We actually talked to like all of the great rock and roll women of the 80s, like Pat Benatar and Deborah Harry and Stevie Nicks and Alana Miles. Alana was going to do it, but Alana had been in an accident and hurt herself, and her neck was screwed up. And but she came to set. Actually, she flew down because we shot it in Charleston, South Carolina. But she flew down, and but we ended up hiring Patti Smythe, not Patti Smith, but Patti Smythe, who had that band Scandal, and like she had the hits Warrior and Goodbye to You.
I love Goodbye to You. Goodbye to You. Are we allowed to say that?
I loved Patti Smythe in the 80s. I had a crush on her. And she's married to John McEnroe, who I previously shot a Visa commercial with him. And I was validated by John McEnroe because he yelled at me in front of everybody. So that's cool. Yeah, I can take it. I just smiled and said, okay, cool. Yell at me.
So B-roll, make sure you have that for our making of the film, Angel Camouflage.
Angel Camouflage. That movie, though, was a delight. It did not get a good distribution. We went with a company that got it involved with a company that went bankrupt, and then it was stuck in litigation for a long time. We're trying to get it re-released right now. There's somebody that has it on Amazon right now, and they're not supposed to have it. And we're trying to get it back so that we can re-release it. And
so somebody at Amazon has your film that you own, Angel Camouflage. Amazon, don't let them get away with that. Come on, everyone. Fans, get behind Angel Camouflage. This rock and roll film by Michael Givens, needs to come back to you and be distributed, because right now people want to see rock and roll films. They are begging for great films with rock and roll.
Here's what I want to do. I want to do some, like Zoom screenings, not where people are looking at it on Zoom, but people will get together and look at it, and then we'll do like a Q&A.
I have a party platform for you, Michael. My friend's a tech guy in Silicon Valley. He's got the party platform where you have 300 people in a room per laptop. There's a camera the audience can turn off and on. There's audio. Yeah. They can turn on the you can talk to people.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that because I can get people that worked on the movie, such as Delana, maybe Jim Brolin, maybe the guys from Marshall Tucker Band, maybe Curtis Blow.
Amazing.
I'm sure that Patty would do it. And get people to do. It's like I went on the festival circuit with that movie, and it won like 14 awards. In different festivals around the world.
Congratulations.
And a lot of times we would go and do Q&As, and it was amazing. They would have to run us off the stage because people had so many questions. But one of the reasons that people loved it so much at film festivals is because it's such a homegrown film, because it didn't cost a lot of money, but we raised the money and we got real people in it. And don't get me wrong when I say real people. Everybody's real people. But what I'm saying is that we got people that had some box office draw that were in this thing. We had real crew members. And again, I'm saying that because there's a lot of people out there that make the mistake of making movies with absolutely nothing. It's okay if that's what you have to do, but don't let that become your career, because it's an actual business. And getting professionals to work is a huge advantage to filmmakers to actually have a career. And so many people just feel like, you know what, I can buy the camera that makes me a director. Okay, to some extent. But honestly, if you don't understand how the business works and how you actually put this project together and how to deal with actors, how many directors especially at that level, actually understand the language of actors to be able to talk to them? Listen, I hear it from actors all the time. I run an acting school as well, and I hear it, and it's horrifying to them. They feel very alone because these folks haven't been trained and they don't know how to speak that language. So anyway, I'll get off my high horse.
Yeah. So this leads us into the question, like, how has COVID affected your art and your work and your life at home? So yeah.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah, without going into what is COVID and why did this happen? Why did something that has a 99.8% recovery rate actually do this to the world? You have to understand that there's a lot of different reasons and powerful people that move things around. For me, the selfish end of it is that it, for the most part, has really not completely killed, but it is maimed the film industry to a point of, will it be the same when it comes back? I don't know. It'll be something, but will it be the same? And was this necessary? Because the film industry is a really wonderful industry of that with storytelling. But like I said before, it is definitely a device of propaganda. And I try to stay away from that and just tell people stories that I think will move them and tell them a story that either entertains them or reminds them of some sort of great moment in their own lives. But there are people that are trying to do other things. So what does it mean? I mean, the industry shut down last year. Since from 1995 to 2019, the major studios produced, I think it was 157 movies. Now, last year, because of the shutdown, let's just take one of those movies, and let's say 20th Century Fox, they literally produced one movie last year. Now, of course, there's all these people that are out of work and this sort of thing, and it's a huge domino effect. It's not just the people on set. It's not just actors. It's not just crew members. It's the people that run movie theaters. And let's be honest, guys, people that run movie theaters, there's only a handful of companies that actually own most of the movie theaters, but they, are real people that are working in them, that are trying to stay alive and support their families. And to be honest, they make most of their money selling corn and sugar water. And, so they've got, it's a fine line between survival. And, it's the distribution companies and the production companies and investors that are making all the money. If you look into the business of how a movie makes money, it's there's a lot of hands in the pockets, and the people that actually own the cinemas are not getting a lot, and those people are suffering. So across the board, and now also, it is a normal sort of pastime for people to get together amongst their friends or their lovers and go sit in a dark room and watch a movie. And now that's been taken away from people. So do they come back? And again, like I said before in one of these other episodes, it's not an event when you look at it on your TV, when you stream it.
Well, there is the interactive that I'm seeing streaming with interactive parties. They're called interactive parties. Like everyone's inviting me to Clubhouse. I will go on there. I do need to upgrade my phone. As you guys know, I am Cinderella here. But there is interactive party streaming platforms that I'll talk to you about that my friend from Silicon Valley is a tech guy that introduced me to. And I did see a friend of mine do something with a streaming Twitch I actually pitched like about 20 years ago to Fox Studio interactive script of mine. It was a date script, and they said it was like way advanced before its time. It was interactive where the audience picks, chooses the thing, and it's totally completely interactive. Which now it is 100% doable. Like we are living in the Jetsons age. So I'm hoping that the theaters open up. We're really hopeful the theaters open up because I think binge watching, streaming, watching on your phone to your laptop to your computer to the big screen. There's something about a big screen that's like, your first date or dressing up like Rocky Picture Horror Show where you dress up with all your friends, or you go into a bridesmaid party or a bachelorette party, or you bring your kids like having a birthday party watching a big movie. But I really do that. But let's speak real quickly before we have enough time to talk about, you teach a class in Atlanta. All actors, please listen to this. You hypnotize the actors, or use hypnotherapy to get the actors to do acting. Can you explain to me and on the audience all about that cool acting technique?
Absolutely. You heard me complain that many people don't understand the language of actors, and that's not something that I've just come up with. I actually discovered that when I was in film school in Santa Barbara, and I had a dear friend that told me when I was complaining about that directors didn't tend to understand about acting. And this particular acting person, which is now a big casting director, which is Megan Foley, she said, "Why don't you go take an acting class?" And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I went and took a Lee Strasberg method class, not with Lee, but his style. And I thought it was insane. I thought it was crazy, and I left, and then went and studied a few other things like Stella Adler and Meisner, and the usual suspects. And I went back to the method because I thought it was the thing. Now, I studied acting not so that I could be an actor, but so I could be a better filmmaker, so that I could truly understand how it is that you deal with acting. And I never stopped studying it. In fact, I then started studying with a guy named Chuck Mara, who incidentally married Megan Foley. And he did study with Lee Strasberg. And the other thing is that I'd studied hypnosis casually before that. And what I figured out as soon as I took that method class was that the relaxation and effective memory, which I did not get into at that point, but I'd heard about, effective memory was literally just a hair's breadth away from hypnosis. And from that moment on, I started trying to figure out, how do I actually mix these things? Until finally, after I started directing, I would occasionally get asked to come lecture at an acting school. And so I would go talk at acting schools, and then I would ask if I would come and teach, for pitch hit for another teacher that had to leave. And I really discovered how close this was. And I started using it with actors on the set. I started studying more about hypnosis. And then I opened my own school. And when I opened my own school, it was for the purpose of being able to discover exactly how this connection could help actors. And there are hypnotherapists that do things like help people to get better at memory and to memorize their lines and to get over stage fright. And that's fine. But for me, when you talk about effective, or what they call emotional memory, where you take something that happened in your life, and generally actors always go to the dark side, but the dark side is very important because it's the dark side that we experience in our lives that we tend to have feelings like regret. We don't usually regret the great things that happen to us. So consequently, the emotions that you have over something that was relatively horrible are very long-standing. And we have a tendency when something bad happens to us to analyze it and figure it out and deal with it so that it never happens again. When something good happens to us, we tend to go out with our friends and get drunk and celebrate. But we don't sit and say, sometimes we do, but normally we don't sit and say, wow, how do we make that happen again? And so I figured out how it is with emotional memory / effective memory that actors then take these things and play that particular scenario in the background of a scene that they're doing. Well, if I take them through a series of sense memory exercises and hypnotize them to attach that particular thing, and I'll get them to get to a place, let's say say they're using something like they were in a car accident when they were 7 years old. And if I will take them back to that car accident in a hypnotic state and get them to describe the color that they see, the light, that sort of thing. What do they hear? What do they smell? What do they taste? What do they feel? And then surround that with a trigger in the scene that they're playing. And then when they play that scene, let me tell you something. It goes from being a fantastic, wonderful, effective scene to award-winning.
Oh my gosh. Did you hear that,
Every
everyone?
time.
From just an ordinary scene to an award-winning scene. Michael, what is your class's name? And it's in Atlanta. Do they have, is it online right now with COVID or
Well,
is
actually, because of COVID, it's online. I don't even right now at the moment. I don't have a single student that lives in Atlanta. They all live in Europe. Got one in New York, a few in Florida, but mostly they're in Europe. There's one right now that's in Utah, and it is very heavy, but it's very serious. And I give you actors, and I always teach actors to think like filmmakers, to broaden everything. But I say this also to people that want to be directors. You ought to study acting. And again, learn how to speak to actors so that you can be on a level with them of understanding. That's the way you're going to tell your story the best. These people are trained to do things, and it's best that you understand it. But then I developed another thing that I call deep character identification, which I got from a fellow hypnotherapist named Sean Carson. Had written a book called Deep Trance Identification, which was based on a thing that they've been doing in Russia for decades, where this is the way they train their athletes. This is the way they train their scientists and writers and actors. That they use a thing called Deep Trance Identification, where they are able to go, take them to a place. Well, I kind of readjusted that specifically for actors. And certainly give credit where credit is due, but it's readjusted because I've made it easier and more accessible, and it's also a game changer. And basically what you can do with deep character identification is that while with effective memory, you're able to go into your own life and choose these sort of things to happen, I teach you how you can study any other person or a tree or a hurricane or a rock, whether they're a historic person or a character from a play or a book or a movie. And through hypnosis, you can emulate whatever you want to from that person and lay it into your scene.
So Michael, where would they find you? Your michaelgivens.com is where people can find out what you're working on. Can they also find out about your class on michaelgivens.com, and that's GIVENS.com?
Yes. If you go to that site, I've recently put pretty much all of my entities at the one place. And the tabs at the top, there is acting classes. And the acting school is called MGA, just like my old production company, which stands for Michael Givens and Associates. But that website is now part of that website. My hypnosis business is also on there, because what I found is that I would do hypnosis with a client, with an actor, and I never do this in front of people, but invariably, you don't hide anything on the set, and people find out, and then people would come to me on the set and say, like, hey, can you help me stop smoking or lose 10 pounds or stop chewing my fingernails or get rid of anxiety? And I would say, yes, of course. And then we would do that. And so now on the side, I do that sort of thing. But there's another thing that I really enjoy doing, particularly for actors, and that has to do with regression therapy. Not going back into their own lives or present lives, but doing past life regression or past life therapy, where then actors go back and observe things from past lives and you don't actually have to believe in reincarnation, this can be a very creative way of coming up with story.
Oh, amazing. Well, we're about to run out of time. I want to thank everyone. Please check out michaelgivens.com. And thank you for listening, everyone. That's Michael Givens on Filmatics.